With well over 20 different songs and over 63 million views on Nico Nico alone, there is no producer who defined the early 2010s better than Jhan in his creation of the Kagerou project. A series of videos that would completely reshape how he looked at Vocaloid and cemented him as a legend in the community. But what exactly was a Cogito project? And how did one producer seemingly put the top of the board into a stranglehold during one of the most competitive eras in Vocaloid history? Let's take a closer look. In 2011, Vocaloid had become a powerhouse on Nico Nico. New talented producers seemed to come out of thin air almost every single week. However, there were a handful of producers that had managed to make a name for themselves and climb their way slowly up to the top of the boards. In the Japanese Vocaloid community, they have a term for songs called monban, which essentially translates to gatekeeper, as these songs typically stayed within the top 30 for multiple consecutive weeks before someone could take them down. And as you can expect, the king of the boards made several of these songs. But by the beginning of the year, a change was imminent. The powerhouse producers who had ruled the scene for the past 2 or so years had felt their time had come to work on new projects and gradually left. Wawaka, Hachi, and Daiko27, to name a few, would all leave to pursue separate careers under their own names or to experiment on new projects with other artists. This was frightening for sure. An order that had been established for so long was now suddenly shattered. But it was also a very exciting time as well. This was an opportunity that only came once every couple of years, and every producer on that site knew whoever caught the audience's attention first would have an opportunity to reach heights never thought possible before. But who would do it? Maybe a producer like Last Note who had been gaining traction in the community towards the end of that year. Or maybe it would be someone from the past like Cosmo P. But instead, to everyone's surprise, it would be a complete amateur from Hokkaido that would turn everything completely on his head. Shinsen no teki-p, or as he's better known as these days as Jhan, grew up on a small island named Nishiri in Hokkaido, Japan. He recalled looking back at the area he grew up in as very small. There was only a total of 12 kids in his elementary school growing up, but he quickly found an interest in music at a young age and joined multiple bands growing up throughout his life. However, he didn't find much success. He recalls one time when only 2 people showed up to a live house he played at, those 2 people being his parents. But that would quickly change when one of his friend's brothers introduced him to Vocaloid. At this point in his life, Jhan had a secure job, he majored in recording in college, and he honestly had nothing to lose, so he started uploading to Nico Nico, with Jhan's Enemy being his first track. And it was a complete flop. It only made it to number 57 on the first week it was released, and then the following week it was completely off the listings. But it didn't matter to Jhan because in his eyes he had finally made it. This was a man who knew failure and did not get discouraged when he didn't get the results that he wanted. To the average person, getting a couple of thousands of views was probably pretty disappointing. But to Jhan, it was just a starting place. Jhan's next song, Mikakushi Code, would break into the top 30 the week it was released, and then it slowly creeped its way up to 24 the following week. The young producer was making quick ground, but no one was ready for what would happen next. On September the 30th, Jhan would become an overnight sensation with his song The Cogito Days. This time there was no slow burning. The song jumped immediately to number 1 within the week it was released. And then it kept it the following week as well. If you thought Jhan was happy before, there was nothing compared to now. In fact, Jhan was so happy that he was hospitalized. Unfortunately, not due to excitement but for pneumothorax. He had to spend a week off from work, but despite the holes in his lungs, he said nothing could match the happiness he felt seeing his song hit number 1. Rock was no new concept to Vocaloid artists like Wawaka or Jimmy Thumb P, who had found success multiple times within the genre on Nico Nico. But Jhan had accomplished something brand new with the Cogito Days. Not only was it impressive from a production standpoint, with its blaring synths and catchy guitar riff, but it was also surprisingly well written. In the end, what made you want to listen to the Cogito Days again was the story that it told. Repeated listens were demanded to try to understand everything the complex narrative offered within the short 4-minute song. On August the 15th at 12:30 in the afternoon, we are put into the shoes of a young boy who's spending his free time speaking to one of his friends with a cat in her lap. But as they're walking, it suddenly jumps out of her arms. While she's running over to pick up the cat, she is brutally hit by a truck that kills her instantly on impact. After passing out, he suddenly wakes up to find himself in the previous day. He goes back to find her, only for her to be killed again. This cycle continues until he loses track of time. Weeks turn into decades as he desperately tries to save her, until he finally snaps and just throws himself in front of the truck. But does the cycle actually break? Well, the song of the time leaves off on a cliffhanger. Over the next 2 years, the Cogito project would dominate the rankings on Nico Nico. Jhan could put out a simple cover of a track he's already made, and it would still climb all the way up to the top of the board. And once you thought that the hype was dying down, he would release a new track and the top 30 would be flooded with his songs all over again. Some would criticize it for making the scene boring and predictable, but for the first time since the days of the O, there was one sole producer that has seemingly become the king of the charts. Okay, so the Cogito project was revolutionary, but plenty of artists have made revolutionary songs in the past and fell off. So what made the Cogito project different? Well, people became engrossed in the idea that the songs along with the music videos were puzzle pieces into making a larger narrative. Not only did you want to hear Jhan's next song because you loved the melodies he made, but you were also invested in the characters and the world he was building as well. Vocaloid had always been a hybrid of anime and music culture. Jhan was just simply the first one to take full advantage of that, and the result was the Mega Kushidan. For those unaware what the Cogito project is about, the plot centers around a group of kids who have special powers related to their eyes. For example, Momo Kisaraki has the ability to draw the attention of everyone around her, while Kido, the leader of the group, can do the direct opposite, allowing her to become completely invisible to everyone around her. My initial assumption when I got invested in this franchise was that it was going to be your typical shonen battle series, that Shintaro was supposed to be the relatable main character with no powers, that ends up getting caught up in something he doesn't understand. He would slowly learn to overcome his problems and become someone, while not as powerful as the rest of the group, someone they could respect and lead the group against various villains. But I couldn't have been more wrong. I was not only surprised, but relieved to find that the Cogito project was a far more complex beast. The series' focus, instead of moving a plot forward, was instead on the complexities of human relationships and a desire not to be alone. Instead of painting these kids as characters we wanted to become, Jhan instead shows us them at their most vulnerable. It didn't matter how powerful they were or what abnormal events they were part of, because in the end they were just a normal group of teenagers. They didn't even want to keep their powers. Because there was something far more valuable to them than any of that. The ability to live lives as normal kids. They love just like us, they hate just like us. They even have self-esteem issues. They're just a bunch of misfits looking for a place to belong. In my opinion, it was no surprise that the Cogito project took off as much as it did. In a way, it almost felt like a safe zone. A community where people can communicate to one another, in a society they didn't feel accepted them. They related to the issues that Jhan had conveyed into the characters of his story. The feelings of isolation and self-hatred. The Cogito project became a hub of recovery and warmth for them that told them that everything would be okay. That they weren't the only ones that felt that way. Whether you love it or hate it, it's hard to deny the Cogito project was revolutionary in what it did. I have high doubts that IA would have gained the traction she has today if it wasn't for Jhan backing the vocal bank so early in its development, and also using her for a good portion of his most popular tracks. Even today, there is nothing quite like what Jhan did. Being able to integrate a complex narrative into your songs, while still making them entertaining enough that a casual listener could pick them up, is a feat worthy of the universal praise the series has received. Today, the Cogito project has been everywhere. The series was adapted into an anime called Megakushi City Actors in 2014 that was completely written by Jhan and made by Studio Slate, a studio famous for their adaptation of Monogatari and their original Madoka Magica, and also a manga that was finished this year, and of course the light novels that were released side by side with the songs. But what does the future of the franchise hold? Jhan was quoted saying that he wanted to continue the Cogito project until his head withered, and the surprising quality of Megaku City Reload, released last year, paints a bright future still for the franchise. Let's just hope he doesn't forget what made it so special. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done one of these end slates, but recently the channel hit 100 subs, so I wanted to give out some quick thanks. When I started this channel 6 months ago, I had no idea that it would grow this quickly. I know 100 subs in some people's minds is not that much, but for me, and all that work that I've had to do to get to this point, it honestly means the world to me, and I can't thank you guys enough. There was definitely points down the line where I wanted to quit and give up, but every time I finish one of these videos and I see the support that you guys always give me, it honestly always motivates me to get back up and make the next video, and I can't thank you guys enough for it. I'm going to continue to keep trying to make content that you guys like, and hopefully keep growing as a person while making this channel. And with that, I'm going to head back under my rock to make my next video. Thanks again, guys. Bye.